I came home early from work to find my stepfather demolishing my brand new kitchen, while my sister's construction crew ripped out my custom cabinets. When I demanded they stop, he punched me right in my own living room, and they just kept drilling like I wasn't even there. What happened next? Let's just say they never saw it coming. By the time I was done, they'd lost more than just access to my house and that video of him hitting me. It went places they never imagined. My name is Rachel Monroe, and at 37, I've built a life most people in Fairhaven would consider successful. As a high-end kitchen designer, I spend my days creating culinary spaces for clients who appreciate the marriage of beauty and functionality. It's more than a job, it's my passion, my art form, and after 15 years of sketching, planning, and bringing dream kitchens to life, I finally had enough saved to create my own. The house I bought 6 months ago wasn't much to look at from the outside, a modest single-story ranch in a quiet neighborhood on Fairhaven's west side. But the moment I walked through those doors, I saw potential. The bones were good, the natural light exceptional, and the kitchen became my canvas. I spent 3 months and nearly $40,000 transforming that outdated galley into a showpiece. Custom walnut cabinets with soft close drawers, quartz countertops in pristine Calacatta gold, a 6-burner Wolf range that could make any chef weep with joy, and a massive island that served as both prep space and entertainment hub. Every detail was meticulously chosen, from the hand-forged iron cabinet pulls to the Italian tile backsplash I'd imported specially. This wasn't just where I cooked, it was my portfolio, my sanctuary, my proof that I'd made it. Living alone had never bothered me. After watching my mother's marriage to my biological father implode when I was 8, followed by her hasty remarriage to Ray when I was 10, I'd learned early that independence was safer than dependence. My mother, Patricia, meant well, but she had a weakness for men who promised security and delivered control. Ray fit that mold, perfectly charming and gregarious in public, but ruling our household with passive-aggressive manipulation and occasional bursts of temper that kept everyone walking on eggshells. Ray worked in city planning, which mostly meant he'd leveraged connections to secure a cushy position, where he attended meetings, played golf with councilmen, and collected a salary that funded his boat and his bourbon collection. He was the type of man who believed his gender and his paycheck gave him authority over any woman in his vicinity, especially the ones unfortunate enough to be related to him by marriage. My half-sister Kimmy came along when I was 12, and from the start she was Ray's golden child. Where I was too independent, too stubborn, too much like my deadbeat father, Kimmy could do no wrong. She inherited our mother's delicate features and Ray's talent for manipulation, growing into a woman who believed the world owed her success without effort. At 32, Kimmy had a husband named Derek, who worked sporadically in construction, 2 kids, Aiden 7 and Bella 5, and a resume littered with false starts. She'd tried her hand at interior design, riding on my coattails and using my name to secure clients before inevitably flaking out when the actual work began. She'd sold essential oils, hosted jewelry parties, and even attempted to become a social media influencer, each venture ending when the gap between her ambition and her work ethic became insurmountable. Despite our complicated history, I maintained a relationship with my family. Not close, I'd learned to keep them at arm's length, but cordial enough for holiday dinners and the occasional birthday card. My mother would call every few weeks, usually to update me on Kimmy's latest crisis, or to hint that I should help family more. I'd listen, make non-committal sounds, and change the subject to safer topics like her garden or the weather. My life in Fairhaven was carefully constructed to minimize drama. I had my business, my beautiful home, a small circle of professional friends, and a routine that kept me sane. Monday through Friday, I met with clients, sourced materials, and supervised installations. Weekends were for my own projects, farmers market runs, and the occasional dinner party where fellow designers and architects would gather in my kitchen to drink wine and discuss the latest trends in sustainable materials. I'd dated, of course. There'd been Marcus, the contractor with rough hands and a gentle heart, who couldn't understand why I wouldn't move in with him after 6 months. Then James, the divorced accountant, who'd seemed perfect until I realized he was looking for a mother for his teenage sons rather than a partner. Most recently, there'd been Paul, a fellow designer, who shared my passion for mid-century modern aesthetics, but not my desire to keep our lives separate. Each relationship ended the same way, with them wanting more than I was willing to give, unable to understand that my independence wasn't a phase or a fear to be overcome, but a fundamental part of who I was. "You'll end up alone," Ray had sneered during last Christmas dinner after his third bourbon. "No man wants a woman who thinks she doesn't need him." "Good thing I'm not looking for a man who needs to be needed," I'd replied, helping my mother clear the table while Kimmy sat scrolling through her phone, ostensibly managing her online boutique that had sold exactly 3 items in 6 months. That was 3 months ago, and I'd successfully avoided any family gatherings since. My mother's calls had grown more frequent lately, full of sighs and mentions of how tired Kimmy looked, how stressed Derek was with work being slow, how the kids needed space to run around. I'd perfected the art of sympathetic sounds while mentally reviewing my schedule, grateful for the distance my success afforded me. My house had become my fortress, each room reflecting my taste and my choices. The living room with its clean lines and carefully curated art. The home office where I sketched designs late into the night. The master bedroom with its platform bed I designed myself, and the walk-in closet organized with military precision. And always, I'd end up back in the kitchen, running my hands along the smooth countertops, adjusting the pendant lights over the island, making tiny adjustments to maintain perfection. I should have known that Fortress was too tempting a target. In families like mine, success isn't celebrated, it's resented, coveted, and ultimately attacked. But that Tuesday morning, as I prepared for a client meeting, brewing coffee in my pristine kitchen, while morning light streamed through the windows, I'd enlarged specifically to capture it, I felt nothing but contentment. The call would come that afternoon, just as I was finishing a proposal for a restoration project in the historic district. Kimmy's name on my phone screen was unusual enough to make me pause. She typically communicated through our mother, preferring the buffer of maternal guilt to direct confrontation. I almost didn't answer. Looking back, I wish I hadn't. But family, even fractured and complicated family, has a way of pulling you back into its orbit just when you think you've achieved escape velocity. "Rachel, oh, thank God you answered." Kimmy's voice was pitched high with what sounded like genuine distress. In the background, I could hear construction noise, drilling, hammering men shouting instructions. "What's wrong?" I asked, already regretting the concern in my voice. "It's a disaster. Our apartment, the landlord started renovations without telling us. They're literally tearing out walls. We have nowhere to go." Her voice cracked. "The kids are terrified. Derek's crew can't work because all their equipment is trapped inside, and I don't know what to do." I closed my eyes, seeing where this was heading. "Have you called?" "Mom's house is too small, you know that. Ray's using the spare room as his office now. We tried a hotel, but with Derek's work being slow," she trailed off, letting the financial implications hang in the air. "Kimmy, just for a week, Rachel. Please. The contractor promised they'd be done in a week. We'll be like ghosts, you won't even know we're there. The kids can share the guest room, Derek and I will take the couch. We just need somewhere safe while they finish." I looked around my pristine living room, imagining toy cars on my hardwood floors, sticky fingerprints on my walls. But then I heard what sounded like Bella crying in the background, and my resolve wavered. "1 week," I said firmly, "and there are rules. No toys in the living room, no food outside the kitchen, and absolutely no one touches anything in my kitchen. It's not just my personal space, it's my work showcase. Clients come here." "Of course, oh Rachel, thank you. You're saving us. We'll be there tonight around 6 if that's okay. Just with overnight bags. Nothing major." After we hung up, I spent the rest of the afternoon client-proofing my house. Breakables went into high cabinets. My design portfolios moved to my locked office. I even put child locks on the kitchen cabinets containing my good china and crystal. 1 week, I told myself. I could handle anything for 1 week. At 6:15, I heard car doors slamming in my driveway. Plural. I walked to the window and felt my stomach drop. Not 1 car, but 3. Kimmy's minivan was expected. The pickup truck loaded with what looked like construction equipment was not. Neither was the third vehicle a beat-up sedan with 4 men climbing out, all wearing work boots and carrying tool bags. I opened the front door before they could knock. "What is this?" Kimmy bounded up the steps, all smiles now that she'd secured her landing spot. "Oh, Derek's crew. They need somewhere to store their tools since the apartment is locked down. Just for the week, like I said. They won't be staying." "Kimmy," I said. I know. They're just dropping things off." She breezed past me into the house, already appraising it like she owned it. "Wow, you've really done something with this place. Though that wall color is a bit cold, don't you think? I'd have gone with something warmer." Derek followed, giving me an awkward nod before directing his crew. "Just stack everything neat in the garage," he called out. "We'll sort it tomorrow." "There's no room in the garage," I said. "That's where I store client samples." "Living room corner, then," Kimmy decided, already directing traffic. "Kids, take your bags to Aunt Rachel's guest room. Carefully, don't touch anything." Within minutes, my orderly home was in chaos. Tool bags and equipment boxes piled up in my living room. Children's suitcases, far more than overnight bags, were dragged down my hallway. And the men from Derek's crew were trooping through my house, leaving dusty boot prints on my floors. "Derek," one of them called out, "where you want the tile saw?" "Tile saw?" I whirled on my sister. "Why do you have a tile saw?" "Oh, that's for our bathroom renovation," Kimmy said casually, testing the firmness of my couch cushions. "The one they're supposed to start after the landlord finishes. Don't worry, it's all staying packed." By 8 o'clock, my house looked like a construction staging area. The crew had left, but not before one of them used my powder room and left it reeking of cigarette smoke. The children were wound up from the chaos, racing through the halls, despite my repeated requests for calm. And Derek had commandeered my television, switching from my carefully curated streaming services to a sports channel at maximum volume. "Kids need to eat," Kimmy announced, heading for my kitchen. "I have some pasta," I started. "Aiden only eats chicken nuggets. Bella's in a mac and cheese phase. You don't mind if I just order pizza, do you? I'm exhausted from all this stress." By the time I escaped to my bedroom that night, my house felt foreign. The guest room door was ajar, revealing suitcases exploded across the floor and toys already scattered on every surface. The living room television continued blaring, and from the kitchen I could hear Kimmy rummaging through my cabinets, exclaiming over my fancy equipment. Day 2 was worse. I woke to find Derek's crew had returned, using my driveway as a meeting point before heading to their job sites. They'd helped themselves to coffee from my machine, leaving grounds scattered across my previously immaculate counters. Kimmy was still in her pajamas at noon, directing the children to play quietly, while she scrolled through her phone on my couch. "Don't you have anywhere to be?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "It's so hard to work with everything in chaos," she sighed dramatically. "My online business really needs stability, you know, but don't worry about us. We're fine just relaxing here." That evening brought a new development. Ray. He appeared at my door without warning, overnight bag in hand. "Heard there was a family gathering," he announced, pushing past me. "Can't have my grandkids staying somewhere without checking it out. Nice place, Rachel. Bit sterile, but nice." "This isn't a hotel," I said through gritted teeth. "Family helps family," he replied, already claiming my favorite armchair. "That's what you career women never understand. Too busy with your fancy jobs to remember what matters." By day 3, my 1-week house guests had fully colonized my space. Ray held court in the living room, offering unsolicited commentary on everything from my decor choices to my unnatural single status. Kimmy had discovered my home office and set up what she called a temporary workspace, spreading her dubious business materials across my drafting table. The children, sweet as they were individually, had turned my hallways into racetracks and my guest bathroom into what looked like a glitter bomb testing site. But it was the kitchen violations that hurt most. Despite my explicit instructions, I'd caught Derek microwaving leftover Chinese food on my good china. Kimmy had reorganized my spice rack to be more intuitive. And someone I suspected Ray had used my professional knife set to open packages, leaving nicks in the blades. "It's just a kitchen," Kimmy laughed when I protested. "You're so uptight about it. Things are meant to be used, Rachel." Each night I retreated to my bedroom earlier, listening to the sounds of my house being lived in by people who didn't understand or respect what it meant to me. Derek's crew continued their morning gatherings, now bringing breakfast sandwiches that left grease stains on my porch. Ray's commentary grew more pointed, especially after his evening bourbons, and Kimmy's temporary setup expanded daily with boxes of inventory appearing in my halls. By Thursday, I was counting hours. 3 more days. 72 hours. I could survive anything for 72 hours. I focused on work, staying late at client sites, finding reasons to avoid my own home until bedtime. That's when Kimmy dropped the next bomb. I'd just returned from a late consultation to find her waiting in the kitchen sketching something on a notepad. "So small change of plans," she began, not meeting my eyes. "The renovation at our place hit a snag. Something about permits. Might be closer to 2 weeks now. But honestly, Rachel, this is working out so well. The kids love having a yard. Derek's crew is so much more efficient meeting here. And I've actually made 3 sales this week from your home office. It's like fate." I stared at her words, failing me. Behind her, I could see she'd push-pinned fabric samples to my kitchen walls. My kitchen walls. 2 weeks, I managed. Maybe 3 tops. And actually, I wanted to talk to you about the kitchen. The kitchen. My voice came out dangerously quiet. Kimmy brightened, mistaking my tone for interest. "Yes, I've been thinking this space has so much potential, but it's so clinical. All that white and steel. I'm seeing farmhouse chic. Warm woods. Maybe some open shelving, definitely a different backsplash. Something with personality." I gripped the counter, my knuckles white. "This is a professional show kitchen. I use it for client presentations." "Exactly why it needs warmth." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through Pinterest. "Look, I found the perfect inspiration. We could even document the transformation for my design portfolio. From Cold to Cozy, a Kitchen Transformation, by Kimberly Monroe Interiors." "No." She looked up, startled by the firmness in my voice. "Rachel, don't be so rigid. Change can be good. And honestly, with Derek's crew here already, we could get it done so cheaply. They owe him some favors." I said no. This is my house, my kitchen, my decision. Her face shifted, the sweet sister act dropping. "You know that's your problem. Everything is mine, mine, mine with you. Some of us don't have your advantages. Some of us could use a little help establishing ourselves. I've helped you. How many clients did I refer to you? How many times did I cover when you didn't show up? That's not the same as real support. Real family would—" "Stop," I held up my hand. "We're not doing this. 1 more week, as you said, then everyone needs to leave." She shrugged, tucking her phone away. "Sure, Rachel, whatever you say." That night I heard hushed conversations from the living room. Derek's crew had stayed late, allegedly planning tomorrow's job, but their voices carried. Words like uptight way, selfish, and needs to learn drifted to my bedroom. Ray's bourbon-roughened laugh punctuated their discussion. Friday morning brought new violations. Someone had used my cast-iron skillet and left it soaking in water rust already forming on the carefully seasoned surface. My knife block had been moved and several blades were missing entirely. Worst, my collection of handmade ceramic bowls, gifts from a potter client, had been stacked carelessly, chipping the glazed edges. "Accidents happen," Kimmy said breezily when I confronted her. "You can't expect kids to navigate a museum. Maybe if you made the space more family-friendly." "It's not supposed to be family-friendly, it's my home." Ray looked up from his permanent position in my armchair. "Selfish attitude, Rachel. No wonder you're alone." I left for work without another word, but focus was impossible. Every client kitchen I visited reminded me of my own invaded space. When a client complimented my design aesthetic and asked about my own kitchen, I nearly broke down. The weekend was torture. Derek's crew treated my house like their personal clubhouse, coming and going at all hours. They'd discovered my garage workshop and helped themselves to my tools, leaving them scattered and dirty. Kimmy had fully colonized my office, her inventory boxes now stacked along the walls. She'd even put up a tension rod across my window, hanging sample curtains that clashed with everything. "Just temporary," she chirped whenever I protested, "until our place is ready." Sunday night, I made a decision. First thing Monday, I'd call a locksmith. Family or not, this had to end. I fell asleep planning the conversation, how I'd be firm but fair, give them 24 hours to relocate. Monday morning's client meeting ran long. A couple building their dream home, excited about every detail, reminded me why I loved my job. We spent hours selecting finishes, and for a brief time I forgot about the chaos waiting at home. It was barely noon when I pulled into my driveway, energized from the successful meeting and ready to reclaim my space. More vehicles than usual crowded the street. Derek's entire crew, it seemed, plus a van I didn't recognize. The moment I opened my door, I heard it. The sharp crack of demolition. The whine of power tools. My feet carried me to the kitchen before my mind could process what I was hearing. Ray stood in the center of my beautiful kitchen, sledgehammer in hand, bringing it down on my quartz countertop. The calicotta gold surface I'd spent months selecting was already spiderwebbed with cracks. Behind him, Derek's crew was dismantling my custom cabinets, wrenching doors off hinges, pulling drawers from their soft close slides. "What are you doing?" The words tore from my throat. Ray paused mid-swing, grinning. "About time you showed up. Kimmy said you'd be at work all day." My sister stood by the refrigerator, directing two men measuring the wall. "Oh, hi, Rachel." "Surprise. We decided to start the renovation today. I know you were being stubborn, but once you see the transformation, you'll thank me. This cold, sterile look is so outdated." "Stop." I stepped forward, glass from a shattered tile crunching under my feet. "Stop right now." "Don't be dramatic," Ray said, hefting the sledgehammer again. "We're doing you a favor, adding value. That's what family does. This is destruction of property. This is illegal. Stop or I'm calling the police." Ray's face darkened. "You'd call the cops on family, on the man who helped raise you. You're destroying my kitchen." "Improving," Kimmy corrected. "And honestly, Rachel, your attitude is really hurtful. We're trying to help you. This kitchen screams desperate spinster. We're giving it life warmth, making it somewhere a real family would want to gather." I pulled out my phone. "Last warning. Stop now or I'm calling 911. Ray moved faster than I expected. The sledgehammer dropped as he crossed the room in 3 strides. "You ungrateful!" His fist connected with my face before I could finish dialing. Pain exploded across my cheekbone as I stumbled backward, phone flying from my hand. I hit the wall hard, sliding down as my vision sparked. The room went silent for a moment. Then, unbelievably, the drilling resumed. I tasted copper, touched my lip, found blood. Ray stood over me, fists still clenched. "Should have done that years ago. Thought you were too good for us, even as a kid. Always had to be different, special, better than everyone else." "Ray," Derek said nervously, "maybe we should—" "Keep working," Ray barked. "She's not calling anyone. Are you Rachel? Because I know people at the department. They know about your history of exaggeration, your difficulty with family relationships. Who do you think they'll believe?" Kimmy knelt beside me, her voice sugary with false concern. "Just let us finish, Rachel. Fighting will only make it worse. In a few days, you'll have a gorgeous new kitchen, and this will all be a funny story. Remember when Rachel freaked out about her kitchen renovation?" I struggled to my feet, jaw throbbing, room tilting slightly. They'd gone back to work. My beautiful cabinets were being wrenched from the walls. The tile backsplash I'd imported from Italy was being chiseled away. Everything I'd built, everything I'd saved for everything that represented my success and independence, destroyed. "I'm leaving," I managed through swollen lips. "When I come back, you'll all be gone." Ray laughed. "Where you gonna go? Hotels are expensive." "Oh wait, you've got money, don't you? Must be nice looking down on family from your high horse." I grabbed my purse, nothing else. Behind me, Kimmy called out cheerfully, "Drive safe. We'll have such a surprise for you when you get back." I made it to my car on unsteady legs. In the rearview mirror, I saw one of Derek's crew carrying my wolf range out the front door. $15,000 being loaded into a pickup truck like scrap metal. But I smiled through the pain. They thought they'd won. They thought I was the same scared girl who'd hidden in her room while Ray raged and Mom made excuses. They thought I'd come crawling back, accept their violation of my space, maybe even thank them eventually. They had no idea who I'd become in the years since leaving their toxicity behind. Success hadn't just given me a beautiful home, it had given me resources, connections, and most importantly, the backbone to use them. I drove to the Grand Fairview Hotel, where the concierge knew me by name from numerous client meetings. One look at my face and she was offering ice and asking if I needed her to call someone. "Yes," I said, settling into a leather chair in the quiet lobby. "I need to call quite a few people, actually." The concierge Margaret brought me a bag of ice wrapped in a soft towel. "Should I call the police, Ms. Monroe?" "Not yet," I said, holding the ice to my swelling cheek. "I need to make some other calls first." She nodded, understanding. "The business suite is available if you need privacy. And Dr. Morrison is in the building for the medical conference. I could ask him to take a look at that." 20 minutes later, I was in the quiet business suite with the documented medical examination photos of my injuries and a borrowed laptop. Dr. Morrison had been thorough, professionally noting the contusion pattern consistent with a closed fist strike, the swelling, the split lip. He'd offered to call the police himself, but I'd asked him to wait. My first call was to James Whitman, my attorney. We'd worked together on several contract disputes with clients, and he knew I wasn't prone to dramatics. "Rachel, what's wrong?" He could hear something in my voice. I explained calmly and chronologically. The invasion of my home, the destruction of my kitchen, the assault. By the time I finished, I could hear him typing furiously. "First things first, are you safe now?" "Yes, I'm at the Grand Fairview." "Good. Stay there. I'm sending my investigator to your house right now to document everything. Every bit of damage, every person present. Did you have security cameras?" My heart sank. "Only at the front door." "That's something. We'll work with it. Now let's talk about your options." We strategized for 30 minutes. Criminal charges for assault and destruction of property, civil suits for damages, restraining orders, eviction procedures. James was thorough, methodical, and angry on my behalf. My next call was to Mike Harrison, the locksmith, who'd installed my current locks. "Emergency service," I said. "I need every lock changed today. There will be people in the house who won't leave willingly." "How many people we talking about?" 8 to 10. They're destroying my kitchen." A pause. "You need more than a locksmith, Ms. Monroe. You need backup. Let me make some calls. I know some security folks who can ensure a smooth transition." The third call was to my insurance agent. She listened in horror as I described the deliberate destruction. "We have security requirements," I told her. The kitchen was featured in modern home design. I have documentation of every appliance, every finish. This wasn't renovation, it's malicious destruction of property worth over $70,000. "Send me everything," she said. "Photos, receipts, the magazine feature. If they did what you're describing, this goes beyond a simple claim. This is criminal." By 3 o'clock, I was orchestrating a response from my hotel suite. James's investigator, a former cop named Torres, was sending me video from my house. The destruction was worse than I'd seen. They'd torn out the gas lines. The walls were damaged where cabinets had been ripped away. The professional range was gone, likely sold already. "There's more," Torres said over the phone. "I talked to your neighbors. This has been going on all weekend. They thought you'd authorized it, but Mrs. Chen next door has doorbell footage of them loading your appliances into trucks." "Can she send that footage?" "Already did. It's pretty damning. Clear faces, license plates. Your stepfather directing the whole thing." My fourth call was to 3 former clients whose high-end projects Kimmy had ruined with her incompetence. Each confirmed they'd be happy to provide statements about her pattern of destruction and professional misconduct. "She told us she was your partner," one said. "Took a deposit and disappeared. We only got resolution when you personally stepped in." By 5 o'clock, Mike the locksmith called back. "I've got a team ready. 3 security professionals, all licensed and bonded. We can be there in an hour. Fair warning, if they refuse to leave, this could get heated. They're destroying my property, whatever it takes." My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Rachel, where are you? Kimmy says you hit Ray and stormed out. This is ridiculous. Come home and apologize." I stared at the message, fury building. Even now, even with my face swollen and my home being ransacked, I was the problem. I was the one who needed to apologize. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Channel 7's tip line. Lindsay Cruz, an investigative reporter I'd met at a design showcase, had given me her direct number. "Lindsay, it's Rachel Monroe. Remember that story you wanted to do about contractor fraud? I've got something bigger." She was interested. Very interested. A respected professional, a woman business owner, assaulted in her own home while family members destroyed her property, with documentation. "Can you give me an exclusive?" she asked. "If you can have a crew at my house by 7 tonight, you can film the whole thing." My final call of the afternoon was to my bank. I moved money from savings to checking, authorized a large cash withdrawal, and put a freeze on the credit cards I'd foolishly let Kimmy use for emergencies in the past. By 6:30, I was in Mike's van with his security team, my face cleaned up, but still visibly bruised. James had advised me to return with witnesses. "The goal," said Marcus, the lead security officer, "is to secure your property with minimal confrontation. But if they've destroyed what you say they have, they might not go quietly." "I understand." "And this Ray, he's violent?" I touched my swollen cheek. "Apparently." Marcus's expression hardened. "Then you stay in the van until we give the all clear. No arguments." We pulled up to find the destruction had continued. A dumpster now sat in my driveway, filled with the remnants of my kitchen. Through the windows, I could see people moving around Derek's crew, still working despite the late hour. "Showtime," Marcus said. They moved in formation, professional and imposing. I watched from the van as Marcus knocked on my own front door. Kimmy answered her confusion, evident even from a distance. The conversation was brief. She gestured wildly, pointed back toward the house, shook her head. Marcus remained calm, showing paperwork, the eviction notice. James had prepared the documentation of ownership. Ray appeared behind her, chest puffed out, clearly trying to intimidate. Marcus didn't budge. One of his team members was already changing the front door lock while they talked. Then Ray spotted me in the van. His face contorted with rage as he pushed past Kimmy, storming down the driveway. Marcus smoothly intercepted him. "Sir, you need to collect your belongings and leave the premises." "That's my daughter in there. This is a family matter." "She's the homeowner. You're trespassing. The police have been notified and are en route." As if on cue, Lindsay's news van rounded the corner. The camera was already rolling as her team piled out, capturing Ray's red face, his clenched fists, the destroyed kitchen visible through the windows. "Mr. Garner," Lindsay called out, recognizing him from his city planning position. "Can you explain why you're destroying Ms. Monroe's kitchen?" Ray turned, saw the cameras, and his public persona kicked in. The transformation was instant angry bully to concerned family man. "This is a misunderstanding," he said smoothly. "We're helping with renovations. Family helping family." "Then why does Ms. Monroe have a bruised face?" Lindsay pressed. "Why are the police coming?" The arrival of 2 patrol cars ended any pretense. I stepped out of the van, let them see my face, showed them Dr. Morrison's documentation. Torres appeared with his tablet showing the officers video of the destruction. "Ma'am," the senior officer said, "do you want to press charges?" I looked at Ray, at Kimmy, who was now crying dramatically, for the cameras, at Derek's crew, who were trying to slink away with their tools. "Yes," I said clearly. "Assault, destruction of property, theft, trespassing, all of it." The next hour was controlled chaos. Ray was arrested, his complaints about family misunderstandings falling on deaf ears when the officers saw the demolished kitchen and my documented injuries. Kimmy screamed about me ruining her life, about family betrayal, about how I'd always been jealous of her. Derek tried to claim his crew was just following orders, that they'd been told I'd approved everything. The officers weren't buying it, especially when my neighbor arrived with her doorbell footage showing them loading my appliances into their trucks. Through it all, Lindsay's crew captured everything. The destroyed kitchen worth more than many people's annual salaries. The entitled family members who'd felt they had the right to take what I'd built. The bruise on my face that spoke louder than any words about how far they'd been willing to go. As the police cars pulled away with Ray in custody, as Kimmy and Derek packed their children into their van with Marcus's team supervising, as the locksmith finished securing my violated home, I stood in my destroyed kitchen and felt something unexpected. Relief. They'd shown their true colors in a way that no family gathering, no awkward dinner, no guilty phone call could have. They'd broken more than my kitchen. They'd broken any obligation I might have felt to maintain ties with people who saw my success as something to be taken rather than celebrated. Lindsay approached, microphone in hand. "Ms. Monroe, how do you feel about what's happened here today?" I looked around the destroyed space, thought about the months of work ahead, the insurance claims, the legal battles. Then I thought about the security cameras being installed tomorrow, the restraining orders being filed, the bridges thoroughly burned. "I feel free," I said. The Grand Fairview became my temporary headquarters. That first night I barely slept, adrenaline and fury keeping me wired until dawn. But I wasn't wasting those hours I was planning. James arrived at 7 a.m. sharp with a legal strategy that would have made military generals proud. Ray's being arraigned at 10. He said, spreading documents across the suite's dining table. "The assault charge is solid. We have medical documentation, witness testimony from the crew, and your neighbor's footage shows him pursuing you aggressively before you disappeared inside." "What about bail?" "He'll likely get it, but we're pushing for conditions. No contact orders, stay away from your property." The prosecution seems motivated. Apparently Ray's made enemies in the city planning office. Several people are quite happy to see him in handcuffs. My insurance adjuster, Patricia Stern, arrived next. She walked through the video. Torres had taken, her expression growing more severe with each frame. "This is deliberate destruction," she said. "Not renovation, not improvement. They destroyed load-bearing elements, damaged gas lines, created genuine safety hazards. Your policy covers this, but we'll be pursuing them for full reimbursement." "How much are we talking about?" She pulled out her tablet, calculating. "The kitchen alone. With the custom work, the appliances, several, which seem to be missing, we're looking at $90,000 minimum. That doesn't include structural repairs, the damage to other rooms from their equipment, or the emotional distress." $90,000, I repeated. More than Kimmy and Derek had probably ever seen in their lives. "I've seen your work, Ms. Monroe. I know what that kitchen meant professionally. We'll make this right, but it won't be quick. You'll need somewhere to stay for at least 2 months. By afternoon, I was fielding calls from reporters. Lindsay's segment had aired on the morning news, and the visual of a successful woman's home being destroyed by entitled relatives had struck a chord. My phone buzzed with interview requests, but James advised selectivity. "You want to control the narrative," he said. "Too much publicity could backfire, make you look vindictive. But strategic appearances, that puts pressure on them to settle." My first stop after the hotel was my violated home, accompanied by Marcus and his team. In daylight, the destruction was even worse. They hadn't just demolished the kitchen, they'd been planning a complete takeover. Kimmy's inventory filled my office. Derek's tools occupied every corner. They'd even started painting my living room that nauseating farmhouse white. "Boss," Marcus called from the garage, "you need to see this." My garage workshop had been ransacked. Professional tools I'd collected over 15 years were missing. My grandmother's antique drafting table, the one I'd restored myself, had been disassembled and stacked carelessly against the wall. I documented everything, my anger crystallizing into cold determination. This wasn't just about a kitchen anymore. This was about people who believed their relation to me gave them rights to everything I'd built. That evening, my mother finally called. I'd been expecting it, had prepared myself for the guilt, the manipulation. "How could you?" She was crying, of course. "Ray's in jail. The children are traumatized. And for what? A kitchen." "He assaulted me, Mom." "He was trying to help. You've always been so sensitive, so dramatic. One little tap and you destroy our entire family. I actually laughed. One little tap, I have medical documentation of a closed fist punch. I have witnesses. I have video of him destroying $90,000 of my property. Money. That's all you care about. No, Mom. I care about respect. I care about boundaries. I care about not being assaulted in my own home. Kimmy's business is ruined, her reputation. Was ruined long before this. Ask Sarah Martinez about the deposit Kimmy took and never returned. Ask the Washingtons about the bathroom she demolished and abandoned. I've protected her from consequences for years, no more. The line went quiet. Then, in a smaller voice, "What am I supposed to do?" "Whatever you want. But if it involves taking Ray's side over mine, don't expect me to be part of it." She hung up. I blocked her number, then Kimmy's, then every extended family member who might try to guilt me into dropping charges. The liberation was intoxicating. Over the following days, I threw myself into strategic planning. My clients, horrified by what had happened, rallied around me. Several offered their guest houses, their vacation homes. The design community was small, and word traveled fast about what Kimmy had done. "She called me yesterday," one client confided, "trying to get work claiming you two were partners. I told her I'd sooner hire my teenager." The criminal case moved with surprising speed. Ray's attorney, a public defender, overwhelmed with cases, tried to negotiate. "My client is willing to apologize," he offered during a meeting. "This was a family misunderstanding that got out of hand." "Your client assaulted me and destroyed my property," I replied. "He can apologize to the judge." Meanwhile, the civil suits were lining up beautifully. 3 of Kimmy's former victims had agreed to testify about her pattern of fraud. The contractor's licensing board was investigating Derek's crew for operating without proper permits. And Ray. His position with city planning was under review. Turns out, James told me gleefully, he's been using city resources for personal projects. Your neighbor's footage shows a city vehicle at your house during the destruction. His boss is displeased. The best part was the social media explosion. Lindsay's follow-up pieces had gained traction, and suddenly I was receiving messages from people nationwide who dealt with similar entitled relatives. A Facebook group formed Successful Women Against Toxic Families. The stories poured in: siblings who'd stolen inheritances, parents who'd demanded house keys, relatives who'd felt entitled to success they hadn't earned. 2 weeks into my hotel stay, I met with a contractor about repairs. Walking through my destroyed kitchen was painful, but also cathartic. "We can rebuild exactly as it was," he offered. I shook my head. "No, better. I want a kitchen that makes the old one look amateur. I want anyone who sees it to understand what was destroyed and what rose from those ashes." He grinned. "I like the way you think." Ray's trial date was set for 6 weeks out. He'd made bail, of course, but the conditions were strict. The restraining order covered not just me but my property and workplace. One violation and he'd be back in custody. Kimmy, meanwhile, was spiraling on social media. Her business page became a masterclass in what not to do in a crisis. She posted rants about ungrateful sisters, about family betrayal, about how she was being persecuted for trying to help. Each post was screenshot and sent to my lawyer, more evidence of her refusal to accept responsibility. "She's making our case for us," James observed. "No jury will sympathize with someone this entitled." The financial pressure was getting to them. Derek's crew faced their own legal troubles. Turns out destroying someone's property on camera isn't great for business. Several had already agreed to testify against Ray and Kimmy in exchange for lesser charges. "They're turning on each other," Torres reported after his latest investigation. "Derek's blaming Kimmy for the idea. Kimmy's blaming Ray for escalating. Ray's blaming you for overreacting. It's beautiful." 3 weeks after the destruction, I received an unexpected call. My mother using a friend's phone to bypass my block. "Please," she said without preamble, "Ray's lost his job. Kimmy can't get clients. They're going to lose everything. And I need you to understand, I'm caught in the middle. He's my husband, who assaulted your daughter." You don't understand what it's like being married to someone like Ray. If I don't support him..." For the first time, I heard fear in her voice. Real fear. It occurred to me that I'd been so focused on my own escape from that house, I'd never considered what she might be enduring. "Mom," I said carefully, "are you safe?" A long pause. "I don't know anymore." "Do you want to leave?" Another pause. "I don't know how. Everything's in his name. I haven't worked in 20 years. Where would I go?" I made a decision that surprised me. "I'll have James call you, not to discuss my case, to discuss your options, quietly." She started crying. "After everything, why would you help me?" "Because you're right. I don't understand what it's like being married to Ray, but I understand what it's like being his target, and nobody should live like that." It was the first crack in my armor of anger, but it felt right. My mother was a victim too, in her own way. Helping her escape Ray wasn't forgiveness for choosing him over me. It was recognition that the cycle of abuse trapped more than just the obvious victims. As week 4 arrived, the pressure on Ray and Kimmy intensified. The criminal charges were solid. The civil suits promised financial ruin. Their reputations were destroyed. And now, with my mother quietly consulting divorce attorneys, their family structure was crumbling. Monday morning of week 4 brought the security team I'd hired to monitor my property. 3 shifts, 24-hour coverage, all former military or law enforcement. It seemed excessive until they called me that very afternoon. "Ms. Monroe, we've got a situation. Your sister and 2 men are parked across the street watching the house." I pulled up the security app on my phone. There they were, Kimmy in the driver's seat of a rental car, Derek beside her, and one of his crew members in the back. They'd been there for 2 hours. "Document everything," I instructed. "If they approach the property, call the police immediately." James was ecstatic when I informed him. "They're violating the restraining order just by being there. This is gift-wrapped evidence of harassment." But I wanted more than violations. I wanted to understand their next move. Torres volunteered to do surveillance, and within days, he had disturbing information. "They're desperate," he reported. "Kimmy's been reaching out to hard money lenders trying to get cash. She's telling people you have hidden valuables in the house, that she knows where you keep cash." "I don't keep cash in the house." "They don't know that." And here's the concerning part: Derek's been in contact with some questionable people, ex-cons from his construction network. The kind who do jobs off the books, if you understand me. I understood perfectly. They were escalating from destruction to potential theft. Or worse. The security footage from the next few nights proved Torres right. Different vehicles cruised slowly past my house at odd hours. One man actually got out and photographed my security cameras before driving away. "Time to go on offense," James decided. "We file for an emergency hearing. This is conspiracy to commit burglary on top of everything else." The emergency hearing was scheduled for Thursday. I spent Wednesday gathering every piece of evidence. The security footage, Torres's surveillance reports, screenshots of Kimmy's increasingly unhinged social media posts where she claimed I had stolen her design ideas and sabotaged her business. That night my phone rang with a blocked number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "You think you're so smart." Kimmy's voice was different, harder, meaner. The mask had completely fallen away. "But you can't stay in that hotel forever. You can't hide behind lawyers and security guards for the rest of your life." "Is that a threat?" "It's reality. You destroyed my family, my business, my future. You think I'm just going to walk away? Kimmy, you destroyed my kitchen. Ray assaulted me. You did this to yourselves." She laughed, ugly and bitter. "That kitchen, that was nothing. I wanted to burn the whole place down. Still might." I hit record on my phone, grateful for the app James had recommended. "You're threatening arson now." "I'm done threatening. You want to play hardball, fine. But remember, I know things about you, about your business, about where you go, who you meet. You can't watch your back every second." The line went dead. I immediately sent the recording to James and the police. Within an hour, officers were at my hotel taking a statement. Thursday's emergency hearing was a massacre. The judge, already unsympathetic to Ray and Kimmy's renovation gone wrong defense, listened to the threatening phone call with visible disgust. "Mrs. Patterson," he addressed Kimmy directly, "you seem to be under the impression that family relationships exempt you from the law. They do not. Your actions show a pattern of escalation that deeply concerns this court." Ray's attorney tried to argue that the surveillance was circumstantial, that sitting in a car wasn't illegal. The judge cut him off. "Counselor, your clients were ordered to stay away from Ms. Monroe's property. Away doesn't mean across the street. It means away. The fact that they're conducting surveillance suggests intent to commit further crimes." The restraining orders were strengthened and extended. But more importantly, bail was revoked for both Ray and Kimmy based on the new evidence of conspiracy and threats. They were remanded to custody pending trial. The courtroom erupted. Kimmy screamed about injustice, about family, about how I'd ruined her life. Ray tried to maintain his dignity, but I saw his hands shaking as the bailiffs cuffed him. Their supporters, a handful of Derek's crew and some extended family I barely recognized, glared at me as I left. In the hallway, Derek approached. Marcus stepped between us, but Derek raised his hands peacefully. "I just wanted to say, I'm out. This has gone too far. I'll testify, tell the truth about everything. I just want to take my kids and start over somewhere else." I studied him, looking for deception. "What about Kimmy?" His face twisted. "She's changed. Or maybe I'm just finally seeing who she always was. Either way, we're done. I filed for divorce and sole custody." It was the first genuinely human moment from any of them. I nodded. "Tell your lawyer to contact mine. If you cooperate fully, I won't pursue damages against you personally." Relief flooded his face. "Thank you. And I'm sorry. About your kitchen, your face, all of it. I should have stopped it." As he walked away, I realized the family was completely imploding. Ray and Kimmy in jail, Derek fleeing with the children, my mother secretly planning divorce. The toxic structure that had enabled their behavior for so long was finally collapsing. That evening, I met with my insurance adjuster at the house. The restoration was progressing beautifully. Where destruction had reigned, skilled craftspeople were creating something even better. The new kitchen would feature hand-carved walnut details, a Le Cornu range that made my old wolf look pedestrian, and countertops of rare Patagonian quartzite. "It's going to be stunning," Patricia said, "and every penny will be recovered from their assets." "What assets?" I asked. "They're broke." She smiled. Ray had a retirement account. Kimmy and Derek own their house, well owned. The liens have already been filed. Your neighbor, Mrs. Morrison, she's suing them too for emotional distress from witnessing the assault. Turns out she's quite fond of you. The next few weeks blurred together. The criminal trial for assault was swift with video evidence and multiple witnesses. Ray's conviction was assured. He got 18 months, though he'd likely serve 6 with good behavior. The destruction of property charges would be tried separately, promising more jail time. Kimmy's trial was more complex. The threats, the conspiracy evidence, the pattern of fraud with previous clients, it all painted a picture of someone who'd used family connections to avoid consequences for years. Until now. The media coverage intensified. Lindsay did a follow-up series on family financial abuse, featuring experts who explained how successful women were often targeted by relatives who felt entitled to their achievements. My story became a cautionary tale and surprisingly an inspiration. "You gave me courage," one message read. "My brother-in-law has been living in my house for 3 years, refusing to leave. After seeing your story, I hired a lawyer." Another, "My sister destroyed my wedding dress because she was jealous. Everyone said to let it go because family. You showed me that family doesn't mean doormat." 6 weeks after the destruction, I finally moved back home. The house felt different not just because of the renovations, but because the ghosts of toxic relationships no longer haunted its rooms. The new kitchen was a masterpiece, every detail perfect, every surface speaking to both my success and my survival. I hosted a housewarming party for the clients and colleagues who'd supported me. As we gathered around my new island, glasses of wine in hand, someone asked if I regretted anything. "No," I said without hesitation. They showed me who they really were, and more importantly, they showed me who I am, someone who won't accept abuse even from family, especially from family. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. She was staying with her sister in Portland, the divorce papers filed. "I'm proud of you," she wrote, "and I'm sorry it took me so long to see clearly." I didn't respond immediately. Our relationship would take time to rebuild if it could be rebuilt at all. But for the first time in my life, I was operating from a position of strength, not obligation. As my guests admired the kitchen, complimented the restoration, celebrated my resilience, I thought about Ray and Kimmy in their respective cells. They'd wanted to break me to punish me for succeeding where they'd failed. Instead, they'd freed me from the last chains of toxic obligation. The doorbell rang. Marcus, now my permanent security consultant, checked the camera before nodding. It was Lindsay with her camera operator. "Ready for the final interview?" she asked. I smoothed my dress, touched the spot where Ray's fist had landed, now healed without a trace, and smiled. "Let's show them how the story ends." Lindsay positioned her camera crew in my restored kitchen, the afternoon light catching the Patagonian quartzite countertops in a way that made them glow like captured sunset. The contrast between this moment and that terrible day was intentional. We both understood the power of visual storytelling. "Let's start with the legal outcomes," Lindsay began. Ray was convicted of assault. Kimmy's facing multiple charges. How does justice feel? I considered the question carefully. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about prevention. They can't hurt anyone else now, and that matters more than my personal satisfaction. The financial recovery, can you walk us through that? Insurance covered the immediate repairs, but the civil suits are where real accountability happens. Between the destruction, theft of appliances, and emotional distress, we're pursuing damages of over $300,000. My attorney has already placed liens on their assets. Lindsay leaned forward. "Some viewers have criticized you for being vindictive, for destroying a family over property damage." I'd expected this. Those viewers haven't been punched in the face by someone who supposedly loved them. They haven't watched their life's work demolished by people who felt entitled to it. This isn't about property, it's about patterns of abuse that escalate when left unchecked. Tell us about the support you've received. It's been overwhelming. Other women sharing similar stories, offering resources, creating networks. We've actually started a foundation, the Independent Women's Legal Fund, to help women who can't afford the legal response I could. Lindsay's eyes widened. This was new information. A foundation. Launching next month. We've already raised $200,000 in seed money from women who face similar family exploitation. Pro bono attorneys are volunteering, because not everyone can afford to fight back, but everyone deserves to. After the interview wrapped, I had another meeting, this one more challenging. Derek had requested to see me before leaving town with his children. Against Marcus's advice, I agreed, and only in a public setting. We met at a coffee shop downtown, Marcus positioned nearby. Derek looked older, exhausted, his construction swagger replaced by something almost humble. "I wanted to thank you," he began, "for not including me in the financial pursuit, for letting me cooperate. You're testifying truthfully. That's all I required." He nodded, fidgeting with his coffee cup. "The kids ask about their mom. I don't know what to tell them." "Tell them the truth age appropriately. Their mother made choices that had consequences. Hiding from that helps no one. Aiden blames himself. Says if he hadn't complained about the apartment being too small, none of this would have happened." My heart squeezed. The children were victims too in their way. "Would you accept help?" "There's a family counselor I know specializes in helping kids process family trauma." Relief crossed his face. "I can't afford." "I'll cover it. The kids didn't ask for any of this." Derek's eyes welled. "After everything, why?" "Because cycles break with kindness, not just consequences. Your children deserve better than what they've witnessed." As he left, promising to call the counselor, I reflected on how revenge had evolved into something more complex. Yes, I'd pursued every legal avenue against Ray and Kimmy, but I was also building something positive from the wreckage. The next few days brought a flurry of legal activity. Ray's attorney attempted one last negotiation, a guilty plea in exchange for no jail time, just probation and restitution. Absolutely not, James told them. He assaulted a woman in her home. He serves time. The criminal trial for property destruction began the following Monday. I testified for 3 hours, walking the jury through every violated boundary, every ignored request, every escalation that led to that devastating day. They didn't just destroy a kitchen, I explained. They destroyed my sense of safety, my trust in family, my peace in my own home. When someone shows such callous disregard for your boundaries, for your property, for your physical safety, that's not renovation. That's domination. The prosecutor played the security footage. Several jurors gasped when they saw Ray's sledgehammer connect with my pristine countertops. Others shook their heads at Kimmy's directing the destruction like a demented conductor. Ray took the stand in his own defense, attempting to paint himself as a helpful father figure whose efforts were misunderstood. The prosecutor destroyed him with a single question. If you were helping, why did you hit her? His attorney objected, noting that assault was a separate charge. The judge overruled the assault, spoke to intent to the mindset behind the destruction. Ray's mask slipped. She needed to learn respect, he muttered. The courtroom went silent. Even his own attorney looked defeated. Kimmy's testimony was worse. She portrayed herself as a victim of my jealousy, claimed I'd sabotaged her business ventures out of spite. When presented with evidence of her past client fraud, she deflected and blamed everyone but herself. My sister had advantages I never did, she whined. It's not fair that she gets to live in luxury while I struggle. The prosecutor's response was cutting. So you decided to take what wasn't yours. It should have been mine. I have children. She has nothing but her precious career. Several jurors visibly recoiled. One, a professional woman about my age, looked particularly disgusted. The verdict came back in under 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Destruction of property, conspiracy theft. Combined with the assault conviction, Ray faced up to 5 years. Kimmy 3. Sentencing was scheduled for the following month. In the meantime, I focused on positive action. The Independent Women's Legal Fund officially launched with a gala in my restored home. 60 women attended, each with their own story of family financial abuse. My brother stole my identity and ruined my credit. My stepmother convinced my elderly father to disinherit me after I paid for his care for years. My cousin started a business using my name and reputation, then disappeared with client deposits. Story after story, pattern after pattern. We weren't isolated cases. We were an epidemic of successful women being punished for our achievements by those who felt entitled to share them without effort. 3 weeks before sentencing, I received a letter through James, my mother writing from Portland. Rachel, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I need you to know that I see it now, all of it. How Ray manipulated and controlled. How I enabled him by choosing peace over protection. How Kimmy learned that taking was easier than earning. I failed you as a mother. I chose a man over my daughter, chose comfortable lies over difficult truths. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why. The divorce is final next month. I'm working again, retail, nothing glamorous, but it's mine. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that your strength in standing up to them gave me strength too. I read it twice, then filed it away. Maybe someday we'd rebuild something. Maybe not. The choice was mine, now, not obligations. Sentencing day arrived with unexpected drama. Kimmy had fired her public defender and hired a new attorney with money from somewhere I suspected Ray's hidden assets. This attorney came out swinging filing motions to reduce charges, claiming mental distress, demanding a psychological evaluation. James was unfazed. Desperation moves. The conviction stands. In her pre-sentencing statement, Kimmy tried one last manipulation. She spoke of her children missing their mother, of how prison would destroy their lives, of how I was heartlessly orphaning them for a simple misunderstanding. I was allowed a victim impact statement in response. I'd prepared carefully, but in the moment I spoke from the heart. Kimmy wants mercy she never showed me. She speaks of her children, but what lesson does it teach them if there are no consequences for destroying someone else's life? that statement she just made. It's the same manipulation she's always used, weaponizing motherhood to avoid accountability. Her children deserve better than a mother who teaches them that taking is acceptable if you're family. Prison might be the first honest consequence she's ever faced. Maybe it will teach her what my boundaries couldn't. The judge's decision was swift: 3 years for Kimmy, 4 for Ray, with possibility of parole in half that time. Restitution to be paid from any current or future assets. As they were led away, Kimmy turned to me one last time. No more tears, no more manipulation, just pure hatred. "This isn't over," she mouthed. But it was, at least this chapter. That night I hosted a small dinner party in my perfect kitchen. Friends who'd supported me, clients who'd become family, my new chosen tribe. We cooked together, laughed together, filled my home with the warmth Kimmy had tried to manufacture through destruction. To boundaries, someone toasted. To consequences, another added. To freedom, I concluded, raising my glass to catch the light just like my countertops. The evening news played in the background. Lindsay's final segment on the case, highlighting not just the verdict, but the foundation, the movement of women refusing to be victimized by entitled relatives. My phone buzzed with a message from Derek. A photo of Aiden and Bella at their new school in Arizona, smiling. "Counseling is helping. Kids are adjusting. Thank you for giving us a chance to start over." I smiled, then put the phone away. The past was settled. The foundation was launched. My home was mine again, better than before. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new designs, new possibilities. But tonight, surrounded by people who respected my success instead of resenting it, I was exactly where I belonged. The media explosion started small. Lindsay's final segment went viral overnight. Kitchen Destroyer began trending on Twitter, with thousands sharing their own stories of entitled relatives. But it was what happened next that changed everything. "We want to feature your story on 60 Minutes, the producer explained during our video call. "This isn't just about one family's crime. It's about a societal pattern of successful women being targeted by relatives who believe blood relation equals ownership." James advised caution. "National exposure brings scrutiny. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about all the women who'd reached out desperate for hope that they too could fight back. Yes, if it helps even one person, it's worth it. The interview was scheduled for 2 weeks out. In the meantime, the legal machinery continued grinding. Ray's city planning connections, once his protection, had become his liability. An internal investigation revealed years of using city resources for personal gain, including procuring permits for under-the-table construction projects with Derek's crew. "Federal charges," James informed me gleefully. "Wire fraud, misuse of municipal resources, tax evasion on the unreported income. He's looking at an additional 10 years minimum." But the real bombshell came from an unexpected source. One of Derek's former crew members, seeking leniency on his own charges, revealed something stunning. Ray and Kimmy had done this before. There were 2 other houses, he testified in a deposition I watched via video link. Both women, both successful, both relatives of Ray's through his first marriage. They'd move in, claim renovations, destroy the valuable stuff to sell, then claim it was an accident. The women were too intimidated to press charges. My blood ran cold. I wasn't their first victim, just their first failure. Torres tracked down both women. Margaret Hanson, Ray's cousin, had lost a Victorian home worth $500,000. She'd been too frightened of Ray to pursue charges. Elena Ruiz, related through Ray's first wife, had her art studio destroyed, years of work vanished overnight. "I thought I was alone," Margaret sobbed during our video call. "I thought it was my fault for letting them in." "You weren't alone," I assured her. "And it's not too late for justice." Both women agreed to testify about the pattern of behavior. The prosecutor amended charges to include racketeering, a pattern of criminal enterprise. Ray and Kimmy weren't just toxic relatives. They were serial predators who'd weaponized family bonds for profit. The 60 Minutes taping took place in my restored kitchen. Anderson Cooper himself conducted the interview, his silver hair and serious demeanor lending gravity to the story. But it wasn't just my story anymore. Margaret and Elena had agreed to appear, making it an examination of systematic family exploitation. "These aren't isolated incidents," Anderson said to the camera. "Across America, successful women report similar patterns. Relatives who feel entitled to their achievements, who escalate from emotional manipulation to financial abuse to outright crime." The program included expert testimony from Dr. Sarah Crendel, a psychologist specializing in family financial abuse. "We socialize women to prioritize family harmony over personal boundaries. Predators within families exploit this conditioning. They know their victims will hesitate to involve law enforcement, will question themselves, will absorb tremendous damage before fighting back." But the most powerful moment came when they showed the destruction footage. America watched Ray swing that sledgehammer, heard Kimmy directing the demolition saw, my beautiful kitchen reduced to rubble. Then they saw the restoration and understood this wasn't just about property, but about refusing to let abuse define the ending. The response was overwhelming. The Independent Women's Legal Fund website crashed from traffic. Donations poured in. We raised $3 million in the first week. Law firms volunteered pro bono hours. Politicians called for legislation addressing family financial abuse. But there was backlash too. Men's rights groups painted me as vindictive. Some extended family members gave interviews claiming I'd always been difficult and thought I was better than everyone. Kimmy's supporters started a GoFundMe for her appeal, though it raised less than $1,000. The real vindication came at Ray's federal trial. With the new evidence of serial predation, his facade crumbled entirely. The jury saw him not as a misguided stepfather, but as a calculated criminal who'd used family connections to identify and exploit victims. Margaret testified about losing her grandmother's home. "He convinced me that family helps family, that renovation would increase the value. Instead, he gutted it, sold everything valuable, and left me with a shell I couldn't afford to repair." Elena spoke of years spent rebuilding her art career after Ray destroyed her studio. "He said artists were parasites, that I needed to learn about real work. 20 years of paintings gone. My kiln destroyed. My supplies sold. Because he decided my success wasn't legitimate. When my turn came, I focused on the pattern. He chose women who'd achieved something without him, who'd built lives that proved his worldview wrong. The destruction was never about renovation, it was about punishment. The federal verdict was decisive, guilty on all counts. The racketeering charge alone carried 20 years. Combined with state convictions, Ray would likely die in prison. Kimmy's situation deteriorated further when she foolishly agreed to a jailhouse interview, thinking she could garner sympathy. Instead, she revealed herself completely ranting about unfairness, about how successful women had stolen opportunities from real mothers, about how I'd destroyed her family out of jealousy. "She's not even married," she spat at the interviewer. "No kids, no real family, just her precious career and her perfect house. It's unnatural. We were trying to show her what really matters." The interview went viral for all the wrong reasons. Kimmy became the face of entitled relatives everywhere, her words memed and mocked across social media. Real mothers, Steele trended for days. 6 months after the destruction, I stood before Congress, testifying in support of the Family Financial Abuse Prevention Act. The legislation would make it easier to pursue criminal charges when relatives exploited family bonds for financial gain, and would provide resources for victims afraid to come forward. "Family should be where we're safest," I told the assembled representatives. "When that trust is weaponized against us, the betrayal cuts deeper than any stranger's crime. We need laws that recognize this unique violation." The act passed with bipartisan support. President signed it into law 3 months later. I stood in the Oval Office surrounded by other survivors and thought about how far we'd all come from that day of destruction. But the sweetest vindication came in an unexpected form. A year after everything began, I received a call from the American Institute of Kitchen Design. They wanted to feature my restored kitchen on their magazine cover, not just for its beauty, but for what it represented. Resilience in design, the editor explained. How destruction can lead to something even more beautiful. Your kitchen tells a story that resonates beyond aesthetics. The photo shoot was emotional. As photographers captured every angle of my rebuilt space, I remembered standing in the rubble Ray's punch still throbbing on my face, wondering if I'd ever feel safe here again. Now my kitchen wasn't just restored, it was transformed. Every surface spoke of survival. Every detail declared that destruction didn't get the final word. The magazine feature would reach every high-end designer in the country, Kimmy's dreams of recognition achieved by the very person she tried to destroy. The foundation grew beyond my wildest dreams. We opened chapters in 12 cities providing legal resources, safe temporary housing, and counseling for women facing family financial abuse. Corporate sponsors lined up, understanding that protecting successful women from predatory relatives was both moral and practical. I hired staff, real professionals who'd survived their own family exploitation. Together we built something Ray and Kimmy never could, a legitimate organization creating real change. One evening as I prepared dinner in my perfect kitchen, my phone rang. Derek calling from Arizona. I wanted you to know the kids are doing great. Aiden just won a science fair. Bella's in an art program. They're happy. I'm glad, Derek, really. They asked if they could write to you, to thank you for not including me in the lawsuits, for helping with the counseling. Would that be okay? I considered carefully. The children were innocent in all this, victims of their parents' choices. Yes, they can write. The letters arrived a week later, careful childish handwriting on construction paper. Aiden thanked me for giving his dad a second chance. Bella drew a picture of a kitchen with a smiling sun above it. For your pretty house, she'd written. I framed both letters and hung them in my office, reminders that breaking cycles of abuse could create space for healing even in unexpected places. As I write this, it's been 18 months since that terrible day. Ray remains in federal prison, his appeals exhausted. Kimmy serves her time in state facilities, her parole request denied, due to continued lack of accountability. My mother and I have begun tentative phone calls, though trust will take years to rebuild, if ever. But I'm not defined by what they did anymore. I'm defined by what I built from the wreckage, a movement, a foundation, a life surrounded by chosen family who celebrate rather than covet my success. My kitchen gleams in the morning light, more beautiful than ever. Not because of the Patagonian quartzite or the hand-carved details, but because it's mine. Completely, unquestionably mine. And no one, blood relative or stranger, will ever take that from me again. The story that began with destruction ends with construction. Not just of a kitchen, but of a future where successful women don't have to choose between achievement and family. Where boundaries are respected, consequences are real, and the only renovation that matters is the one we do on ourselves, choosing who deserves space in our lives and having the strength to enforce that choice. They came to destroy. Instead, they created a phoenix. And she's just getting started. The Saturday morning started like any other, coffee brewing in my restored kitchen, morning light streaming through the windows I'd enlarged to capture it perfectly. I was reviewing plans for a client's renovation when the doorbell rang. Marcus checked the security monitor first, a habit we'd maintained even after the immediate danger passed. "Delivery van," he reported. "Legitimate company. Want me to handle it?" "I'll get it," I said, expecting the tile samples I'd ordered for the Henderson project. Instead, the delivery driver handed me an envelope. "Certified mail, needs your signature." My stomach tightened. 18 months of legal battles had trained me to dread official envelopes. But the return address wasn't a law firm or government agency. It was from Fairhaven Women's Correctional Facility. Inside, Kimmy's handwriting sprawled across prison stationery. "You think you've won. You think your little foundation and your media fame make you untouchable. But I know things. I've been talking to people in here, people with friends on the outside who specialize in making problems disappear. When I get out, and I will get out, you'll learn what real destruction looks like. This isn't over. It'll never be over. Blood doesn't forget." I handed the letter to Marcus, who photographed it, and immediately called James. Clear threat, James said after I read it to him. This violates her plea agreement and will extend her sentence. But Rachel, we need to take this seriously. Prison connections are real. The next few days were tense. Security was increased. The FBI got involved investigating potential threats from Kimmy's fellow inmates. But I refused to let fear control me. I had a foundation to run clients to serve a life to live. Then came the unexpected call from Fairhaven Correctional. Ms. Monroe, this is Warden Patricia Blackwood. There's been an incident involving Kimberly Patterson. My heart stopped. What kind of incident? She attacked another inmate who refused to participate in her scheme against you. The woman defended herself, vigorously. Your sister is in the infirmary with significant injuries. She'll recover, but she's been transferred to solitary for her own protection. Was the other inmate acting in clear self-defense with witnesses? Apparently your sister had been trying to arrange something involving you and offered commissary funds she didn't have. When she couldn't pay, she attacked the woman she'd been negotiating with. The warden paused. Ms. Monroe, I'm calling, because this incident has revealed a broader conspiracy. We found evidence of your sister attempting to coordinate harassment against you from inside. Letters to various criminal contacts, promises of payment from hidden assets. It's all being turned over to prosecutors. New charges meant Kimmy's sentence would likely double. Her parole possibilities evaporated. She'd engineered her own extended imprisonment through continued obsession with revenge. But the investigation revealed something else, something that changed everything. Hidden in Kimmy's cell, authorities found journals dating back years before the kitchen incident. Page after page of envious rants about my success, detailed plans to take what should be mine, even sketches of my original kitchen with notes about which appliances would be worth the most to fence. The destruction had been planned for months, maybe years. It was never about renovation, it was always about theft and punishment. James used this evidence to freeze previously hidden assets Ray and Kimmy had sheltered through shell companies. The forensic accountants found nearly $200,000 in stolen goods from their previous victims liquidated and hidden in various accounts. We can recover additional damages, James explained. But more importantly, we can ensure every cent goes to their victims, including Margaret and Elena. The relief on Margaret's face when she learned she'd receive restitution was worth every legal battle. I can finally fix my grandmother's house, she wept during our video call. I can make it beautiful again. Meanwhile, Ray's situation in federal prison deteriorated rapidly. His city hall connections meant nothing behind bars, and his arrogance made him enemies quickly. When word spread about his targeting of successful women's stories shared by other inmates who'd known strong women brought down by predatory men, his isolation became complete. 3 months after Kimmy's threatening letter, I received another correspondence from prison. This time from Ray through his lawyer. My client wishes to propose a deal. He'll provide full accounting of all hidden assets and cease any claims to your mother's remaining property in exchange for your agreement not to pursue further civil action. I laughed, actually laughed. Even now imprisoned and facing decades behind bars, he thought he had leverage. Counter offer, I told James. He provides full accounting with no conditions, or we continue pursuing every legal avenue available. He has nothing I want except justice for his victims. Ray capitulated within a week. The hidden assets revealed during his confession funded the foundation for another year and provided full restitution to both Margaret and Elena. But the real transformation came from an unexpected source. My mother, now living independently in Portland, had been attending therapy religiously. She'd started volunteering at a domestic violence shelter, using her experience to help other women trapped by controlling partners. I want to do more, she told me during one of our cautious phone calls. I want to speak at foundation events, to show other women in my position that it's never too late to choose yourself over an abuser. Her first speaking engagement was terrifying for both of us. I introduced her to an audience of 200 women, all survivors of family financial abuse. She stood at the podium, 63 years old, and starting over, and told her truth. I chose comfort over my daughter's safety. I chose a man's approval over my child's well-being. I told myself keeping peace was noble, but it was cowardice. Every woman here who stood up to family abuse has more courage than I showed for 20 years. I'm here to tell you that if someone like me who enabled abuse for decades can finally break free, anyone can. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, dozens of women approached her sharing their own stories of mothers who'd chosen abusive partners over protective instincts. My mother wept with them, apologized to them as she couldn't fully apologize to me, and slowly began building her own path to redemption. The foundation evolved beyond even my ambitious dreams. We opened a legal clinic staffed by attorneys who'd survived their own family exploitation. We created safe houses for women fleeing financial abuse by relatives. We lobbied for stronger legislation and won in 7 more states. Corporate partnerships flourished. Tech companies recognizing that family financial abuse often targeted their successful female employees funded programs providing security consultations and legal resources. One CEO herself, a survivor of a brother who'd stolen her identity and destroyed her credit, donated $10 million to establish permanent endowments. But perhaps the most satisfying development came from Derek's children. As they grew older, understanding more about what had happened, they became vocal advocates against entitlement and exploitation. Aiden, now in high school, wrote an essay about toxic family dynamics that won a national contest. "My mother went to prison for destroying my aunt's kitchen," he wrote. "But the real crime was teaching us that taking was easier than earning. My aunt's strength in demanding justice taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about respect." Bella, following her aunt's footsteps, showed talent in design. She sent me sketches, sometimes careful drawings of kitchens and living spaces. In her latest letter, she wrote, "I want to create beautiful things like you, but I promise I'll only ever build, never destroy." The media attention eventually died down, replaced by new scandals and fresher outrages. But the work continued. Every week brought new calls to the foundation, new women finding courage to stand against entitled relatives, new victories in courtrooms across the country. 5 years after the destruction, I stood in my kitchen, still perfect, still mine, preparing for another gathering. This time, it was a celebration. The 1,000th woman helped by the foundation, the 100th successful prosecution under the Family Financial Abuse Prevention Act, the formal establishment of our international chapters. Margaret was there, her Victorian home restored to glory. Elena displayed her new paintings, career rebuilt and thriving. My mother, 5 years sober from her addiction to toxic relationships, helped serve appetizers. She'd made herself a small act of service that meant everything. Even Derek attended his new wife beside him. Children, now teenagers, who'd grown into thoughtful, ethical young people, despite their traumatic childhood. He'd built a legitimate construction business, specializing in restoration rather than destruction. "I need to tell you something," Derek said quietly while others mingled. "Kimmy's parole hearing is next month. She's apparently found religion claims she's changed. She might get out." I nodded, unsurprised. "I know. Her lawyer sent notice. I'll be there to testify." "Aren't you afraid?" I looked around my kitchen at the women laughing and sharing stories of survival and triumph. At my mother, finally the protective figure she'd failed to be decades ago. At the young people choosing creation over destruction. "No," I said simply. "She has no power over me anymore. If she gets out and comes near me, she'll face consequences again. If she's truly changed, she'll build her own life away from mine. Either way, I'm protected by more than locks and lawyers now. I'm protected by truth." Derek smiled sadly. "I hope she has changed. For the kids' sake, if nothing else. But you don't believe it. Do you?" I thought about those journals, the years of planning, the depth of entitlement that saw my success as theft from her. "No, but I believe in consequences. And she's faced those." As the evening progressed, I found myself back at my island, the Patagonian quartzite cool under my palms. This kitchen had become more than a workspace or showpiece. It was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of boundaries, a beautiful thing that survived attempted destruction and emerged stronger. My phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. For a moment, old fears flared. Then I read it. Ms. Monroe, you don't know me, but your story saved my life. My sister-in-law has been living in my house for 3 years, stealing from me, convinced she deserves what I've worked for. After seeing your courage, I've hired a lawyer. I'm taking my life back. Thank you for showing me it's possible. I screenshotted the message and added it to a folder labeled Why We Fight. It contained hundreds of similar messages, each a reminder that our personal battles can light the way for others. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Kimmy's parole hearing loomed. Ray continued filing appeals from federal prison. Extended family members occasionally surfaced with their own entitled demands or accusations. But tonight in my kitchen, surrounded by survivors and thrivers, I felt only gratitude. They'd tried to destroy me and created a warrior instead. They'd tried to steal my success and multiplied it 1,000-fold through the women now empowered to fight their own battles. The parole hearing arrived on a gray Tuesday morning. I dressed carefully, professional, but not ostentatious, strong, but not vindictive. Marcus drove me to the correctional facility where James waited with a folder of documentation we hoped we wouldn't need. Remember, James advised, stick to facts. Her behavior in prison, the continued threats, the lack of genuine remorse. Don't let her bait you into emotion. The hearing room was smaller than I'd expected. Kimmy sat at a table in prison orange, her hair grayer, face thinner, but her eyes still held that familiar entitlement barely masked by practiced contrition. She spoke first, a rehearsed speech about finding faith, understanding her wrongs, wanting to rebuild her life and relationships with her children. She cried at appropriate moments, quoted scripture about forgiveness, promised she'd learned her lesson. Then it was my turn. 5 years ago, Kimberly Patterson destroyed my kitchen while her father-in-law assaulted me. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm here because of what happened after the threats from prison, the attempted conspiracy to harm me, the complete lack of accountability even now. I produced the letters, the evidence of her continued schemes, the warden's reports of her violent behavior toward other inmates. She claims transformation, but her actions show escalation. She's not sorry she committed these crimes. She's sorry she got caught. Releasing her early would send a dangerous message to every victim of family violence that performance matters more than genuine change. The parole board asked Kimmy directly, "Do you accept full responsibility for your actions?" She hesitated just a moment too long. "I accept that my actions hurt my sister. But she needs to understand I was desperate. My business was failing, my family was struggling. She had so much and family should share." The board member cut her off. "That's a no then." Parole denied. 5 more years before she could apply again. As we left, Kimmy called out, "Rachel, please." I turned Marcus, tensing beside me. Her mask had dropped completely. "You destroyed everything, my life, my family, my future. For what? A kitchen." "No," I said quietly. "You destroyed everything. I just refuse to let you destroy me too." The drive back was quiet. In 5 years we'd do this again, and again after that if necessary. But each time would be easier, because each time she'd have less power and I'd have more life built beyond her reach. A month later, unexpected news: Ray had suffered a major heart attack in federal prison. He survived, but was severely weakened. His lawyer reached out. "Ray wanted to see me." "Absolutely not," was my first response. But something nagged at me. Not forgiveness, he'd never earned that. But curiosity. What did a man who'd built his life on dominance do when faced with mortality? I went with James and Marcus through 3 layers of security to a medical ward that smelled of industrial disinfectant and despair. Ray lay propped in a hospital bed, oxygen tubes in his nose, looking decades older than his 68 years. "Why?" I asked without preamble. He studied me with clouded eyes. "Wanted to see what I created." "You didn't create me. You tried to destroy me." A wheeze that might have been a laugh. "Made you stronger, though. Made you famous. Made you rich with that foundation." I realized then he still didn't understand. Even facing death, he saw my success as something he'd contributed to through his abuse. The narcissism was bone-deep, unchangeable. "You're dying," I said, not a question. "Month, maybe 2. And you wanted what forgiveness closure. Wanted to see if you'd come, if I still had that power." I stood to leave. "You don't. You never really did. I came for me, not you. To see that the monster from my childhood was just a pathetic man who confused fear with respect. Goodbye, Ray." He died 6 weeks later. I didn't attend the funeral, though my mother did. She called me afterward, voice steady. "It was mostly empty," she reported. "Some city hall people who felt obligated. The pastor didn't seem to know him. Kimmy wasn't allowed to attend from prison." "How do you feel?" I asked. A long pause. "Free. Finally, completely free." The foundation work continued to expand. We established international chapters in 12 countries, recognizing that family financial abuse crossed all borders and cultures. The first global summit drew over 1,000 attendees, sharing strategies and strength across continents. Derek's children flourished. Aiden started college, majoring in law with a focus on victim advocacy. Bella received a scholarship to design school. I may have written a recommendation letter. Neither visited their mother, their choice made freely after years of therapy. "She birthed us," Bella told me during a coffee catch-up. "But she was never really a mother. You don't owe loyalty to someone who sees you as a prop in their performance." 5 years became 7, then 10. The kitchen renovation industry evolved, and I evolved with it. My work appeared in magazines, won awards, set trends. But always in the corner of my office hung those first photos, the destruction, the rubble, the reminder of what I'd overcome. One autumn afternoon, as I prepared for yet another client consultation, my assistant knocked. "Rachel, there's a woman here. No appointment, but she says she's your sister." My blood chilled. Had Kimmy somehow gotten early release? "She's quite young," the assistant added. "Maybe early 20s. Confused, I walked to the reception area to find a young woman who looked remarkably like my mother had in old photos. She stood nervously, wringing her hands. "I'm Hannah," she said. "Ray was my father, from his first marriage. I've been following your story, your foundation. I wanted to meet you, to thank you." We talked for hours. Hannah had grown up with Ray's sporadic presence, watching him charm and manipulate, learning early to stay invisible. She'd thought she was alone until my story went public. "You showed me his patterns," she said. "That it wasn't my fault he was cruel. That family doesn't mean accepting abuse. Your foundation helped me get therapy, helped me understand." Another piece of Ray's legacy, but this one choosing healing over harm. I connected her with resources, introduced her to other survivors. She became a volunteer, then staff, eventually running our youth program for those aging out of toxic family situations. 15 years after the destruction, I retired from active design work to focus fully on the foundation. My final project, a complete renovation of the original foundation headquarters, transforming an old warehouse into a beacon of hope. The centerpiece, a demonstration kitchen where survivors could learn not just cooking, but rebuilding life skills wrapped in metaphor. The grand opening drew hundreds. Margaret spoke about reclaiming her grandmother's house. Elena displayed an exhibition of paintings depicting transformation after trauma. My mother, now in her 70s, cut the ribbon with steady hands. "This building," I said in my speech, "stands on the site of an old demolition company. We literally built hope where destruction once reigned." That's what we all do, take the rubble of our past and build something beautiful and lasting. As I stood in that gleaming demonstration kitchen surrounded by survivors and advocates, staff and supporters, I thought about Kimmy. Still in prison, still writing occasional appeals, still convinced the world owed her what others had earned. She'd sworn this wasn't over, and in a way she was right. It wasn't over, it had transformed into something she never imagined. Her attempt to destroy me had created a movement. Her entitlement had funded freedom for thousands. Her violence had birthed vigilance that protected countless others. My phone buzzed with a familiar notification. Another woman somewhere in the world, reaching out for help against an entitled relative. Another story of attempted destruction that would become one of reconstruction. I smiled, remembering that terrified woman standing in her ruined kitchen 20 years ago, face swollen, future uncertain. If she could see this moment, see what her refusal to accept abuse had built, would she believe it? The assistant who'd replaced Marcus, he'd retired to teach security protocols, approached. "Ms. Monroe, the documentary crew is here for your final interview." One last telling of the story this time, for a retrospective on how one woman's stand had changed laws, saved lives, shifted cultural expectations about family and boundaries. As I walked toward the cameras, I passed the wall of photos we'd installed thousands of women who'd found strength to say no more. My destroyed kitchen was there in the center, surrounded by all the beautiful spaces rebuilt by women who'd refused to let destruction have the last word. They'd asked me to end with a message of hope, of inspiration. But standing there, I realized the message was simpler than that. You don't have to accept abuse even from family, especially from family. Your success is yours. Your space is yours. Your life is yours. And anyone who tries to take that through violence or manipulation isn't family. They're just predators who share your DNA. Build your boundaries high and strong. Staff them with people who respect you. And when someone brings a sledgehammer to your door, remember you can always rebuild better than before. The camera rolled. I began to speak. And somewhere in a prison cell, Kimmy sat alone with her entitlement while the world she'd tried to destroy flourished beyond her reach. Justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about living so well that those who tried to diminish you become footnotes in a story of triumph. My kitchen gleams. My foundation thrives. My chosen family celebrates rather than covets my success. And that is the perfect revenge. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Please comment below and share your thoughts on Rachel's journey. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. And if you want more people to hear this important message about standing up against family abuse and protecting what you've built, please hit that hype button. Your support helps these stories reach those who need to hear them most. Until next time, remember you deserve respect, especially from those who claim to love you.